My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 59 years old, a widow, and I live in a peaceful neighborhood in Oregon. I've worked as an office manager at a law firm for close to 2 decades, raised 2 children, Emily, my daughter, who just turned 32, and Luke, my 29-year-old son, and spent most of my adult life ensuring they never had to endure the struggles I once faced. Last Tuesday, I received an email that altered everything. It was from Emily. No subject line, just her name sitting in my inbox. I smiled before opening it, thinking it might be a quick update or a kind note ahead of her big day. We had only recently spoken about her wedding plans. I had already contributed $30,000 to help her book the venue, hire a photographer, and secure the florist she had loved since college. But when I opened that email, my smile faded instantly. Mom. That's how it began. No dear mom, just mom, like a label. Emily explained that she, her fiancé Andrew, and his family had finalized the guest list for the ceremony in Napa Valley. And after much thought, they concluded it was best for me to watch the wedding by Livestream, not attend in person. She added that Andrew's mother was particular about the guest count and wanted to keep things very intimate. At the end, she included a sentence that cut deeper than anything else. If you want to be a part of it, you can watch through the Google Meet link we've set up. Should be just like being there? LOL. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. My coffee grew cold. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. Something inside me shifted quietly, as though the ground had split open. But I was still standing. I replied with only 4 words. Sure, enjoy your big day. No emotion, no debate, just a quiet withdrawal. And I knew those words would echo louder than any scream. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want tears. I wanted clarity. I wanted the silence to speak instead. I closed the laptop, finished my now cold coffee, and got ready for work as if it were any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. That was the day I stopped pretending my sacrifices meant something to my daughter. That was the day everything began to change. The drive to the office that morning was silent. Oregon's early spring air still carried a chill, but I hardly noticed. My thoughts kept circling the same question. How did we get here? I've worked 18 years at Caldwell Walker Law. It's not glamorous, but it's dependable. And dependability was what I needed after my husband passed suddenly when the kids were still teenagers. I can still see myself standing in front of our old washing machine, bills spread across the counter, trying to figure out how to pay for groceries and Emily's upcoming college deposit. Back then, I didn't think twice about giving up weekends. I worked extra shifts, canceled vacations, skipped birthdays. I kept telling myself, there will be time for me later. That time never came. Every dollar I managed to save went to Emily and Luke. When Emily switched majors twice and needed more credits, I covered the cost. When she moved across the country for a short-lived job in New York, I paid her deposit and bought the plane ticket. When she cried through her second breakup at 27, I flew out, held her hand, and made her tea in a kitchen that didn't even feel like home. When Luke wanted to buy a house with his fiancée, I co-signed the mortgage and wrote the first $10,000 check without a second thought. I never kept score. That's what mothers do, isn't it? But that email made me feel like a transaction. Like I'd been valuable only until I wasn't. As if I had a shelf life, and it had already expired. Back at the office, my boss, Robert, stopped by my desk. He's one of those rare men who remembers birthdays and how you take your coffee. He noticed something was wrong immediately. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, setting a latte from the cafe downstairs onto my desk. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say, my daughter just uninvited me from her wedding. Instead, I smiled and said I hadn't slept well. He didn't press. That small act of kindness, the coffee, the silence, nearly undid me. After all the chaos in my head that morning, it reminded me that I still existed, that I still mattered, even if quietly. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed. Emily again. Her name lit up my screen like a spotlight I didn't want. Voicemails, texts, "Mom, please answer. We need to talk. This isn't funny." I didn't listen to any of them, not yet. I just sat there sipping my latte and thought, maybe it's time to stop being the one who always answers. Maybe it's time to stop playing a role in someone else's story when they won't even let you on the stage. That afternoon, I made a decision that would shift the ground beneath all of us. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to do something far more powerful. I was going to act. After work, I didn't head straight home. Instead, I drove to First Federal Bank, just a few blocks from the office. Carlos, the branch manager, had helped me with everything over the years, from setting up college funds to adjusting retirement contributions. He always greeted me by name, Mrs. Collins. He smiled, standing to shake my hand. "What can I do for you today?" I sat down across from him, placed my purse on the floor, and spoke calmly. Almost too calmly. "I need to cancel a wire transfer," I said. He blinked. "The one to the Napa venue?" "Yes, that one." Carlos hesitated. "There may be a cancellation fee depending on timing, but—" "May I ask why?" "The circumstances have changed," I replied without elaborating. He tapped at his screen. "You're in luck. It hasn't processed yet. Just in time." He paused, then looked up at me. "Are you certain, Mrs. Collins?" $50,000 is a significant amount, I nodded. "I'm sure. $50,000. That was the amount I had been planning to send next, on top of the $30,000 already gone. $80,000 in total, for a wedding I wasn't even welcome to attend. I signed the necessary forms and walked out of the bank without a second thought. By the time I got home, there were 9 missed calls from Emily, 2 from Luke. One voicemail simply said, "Mom, please don't do this." I turned off my phone. In the kitchen, I reached for the bottle of red wine I'd been saving for Thanksgiving. I hadn't opened it then. Emily was supposed to visit, but she canceled last minute. "Work," she had said. I poured a glass, carried it out to the porch, and sat in the fading sunlight. Birds chirped in the trees. A neighbor's dog barked. Everything felt still, and then the memories came in waves. All the birthdays I organized alone. All the holiday dinners where I pretended I wasn't waiting for a call that never came. All the little sacrifices that went unnoticed. The new shoes I didn't buy. The car I drove for 14 years. The vacations I postponed. I thought about Andrew's mother, the woman who hardly knew Emily, yet whose opinion carried more weight than mine. The woman whose idea of family meant excluding the one person who had carried Emily through every storm of her life. I thought about the way Emily signed off her email with LOL, as if watching my own daughter's wedding on a screen was a joke. And finally, I thought about myself. Not as a mother, not as a widow, but as a woman, what did I want? Peace, dignity, a life that didn't revolve around being useful to people who only showed up when they needed something. That night, around 9 p.m., the doorbell rang. I considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. It was Luke, still in his office clothes, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He looked uneasy, clutching his phone in one hand like a shield. "Mom," he said, stepping inside before I could speak. "Why aren't you answering your phone?" "Emily's panicking." I shut the door calmly. "Hello to you too," he sighed, already pacing. "She says you're not coming to the wedding now. That you're being difficult," I laughed. Difficult? For not attending a wedding I wasn't even invited to. He shifted uncomfortably. "Andrew's parents are paying for most of it, Mom. You know how traditional they are." I raised an eyebrow. "Traditional? I already paid $30,000. I was about to send $50,000 more. That's not tradition. That's a bill." He froze. "Wait, you were sending another 50? "Was," I said, sipping my wine. "But not anymore." Luke's face went pale. "Mom, they're counting on that. The venue, the food, not my problem anymore," I said evenly. His voice rose. "Of course it's your problem. She's your daughter. And I'm her mother," I said softly. A mother who was told to stay home and watch through a screen. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. "You always make everything about yourself." And that was it. That was the moment something inside me finally snapped. "Get out of my house." "What?" "You heard me, Luke. Get out." "Mom, no," I said, firm but calm. "I've given everything I had, and I'm done being the villain in a story I wrote with love." Luke stood frozen for a moment, then turned and walked out. The door clicked shut quietly, but it felt louder than any slam. I stood in the center of my living room, heart pounding, and realized something startling. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. By the following afternoon, my phone looked like a battlefield. 43 missed calls, 27 unread text messages, 5 voicemails. One from Emily, her voice cracking. "Mom, please. You don't understand how bad this is. Andrew's parents are furious. Everyone's looking at me like I'm irresponsible. Please, just call me back. We can fix this." Another from Luke, sharper. "Mom, you're blowing this way out of proportion. It's just one day. Don't ruin everything." And finally, one from Andrew himself, oddly polite. "Mrs. Collins, I really hope we can work this out. Emily's very upset. Maybe we can talk when things cool down." I set the phone down without replying. At dinner time, I heated up leftover chicken soup, sat at the kitchen table, and read through the printed bank receipts I'd picked up earlier. I traced my finger over the zeroed-out line where the wire transfer had been canceled. Clean. Final. For the first time in years, I felt like I was steering my own ship instead of clinging to the edges of someone else's. Around 10:01 p.m., my email pinged. It was from Emily. The subject line read, "Mom, please don't do this." I opened it, half expecting another accusation. Instead, it was a different tone altogether. Hurried, almost businesslike. "Mom, I know things have gotten out of hand, but we still need you. The caterer requires full payment by Monday or they cancel. The photographer too. We can't lose everything over this. I'm asking you, please transfer the remaining $50K tonight. We'll talk about the rest later. I promise. Emily, no apology. No acknowledgement of my pain. Just a financial transaction." I stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the laptop. The house was silent, except for the ticking of the clock above the fridge. Each second stretched into the next, steady, unbothered by my daughter's emergency. In that moment, clarity washed over me. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a bank account, and banks close. I poured myself another glass of wine, toasted the empty room, and whispered, "To freedom." The morning of the wedding arrived. Bright, cloudless. The kind of day people call perfect. But perfection doesn't survive unpaid bills. By noon, my phone began buzzing again. This time the texts weren't just from Emily or Luke. Cousins, old family friends, even Andrew's sister, all asking the same frantic questions. Is it true the caterer backed out? Where are the flowers? The venue says there's no record of a payment. What's happening? I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I brewed myself a cup of tea, added a slice of lemon, and carried it out to the porch. The same porch where, just a week earlier, I'd sat drowning in wine and regret. Today felt different, lighter. By 3 p.m., the calls turned desperate. First from Emily, screaming through the receiver, "How could you do this to me? Everyone's staring at me like I'm a fraud. The guests are here, Mom. They're all here." Then Luke, "Mom, this is insane. Do you understand what you've done? You've destroyed Emily's big day." And finally, Andrew's mother, her voice cold as steel. "Mrs. Collins, this is unacceptable. You've embarrassed our entire family." I let the words roll off me like rain on a roof. That evening, while chaos unfolded in Napa, I roasted myself a small chicken, mashed some potatoes, and lit a candle in the center of my quiet dining table. The house smelled of thyme and butter. Soft music played from the old radio. For the first time in decades, I ate a meal that wasn't rushed, wasn't shared with tension, wasn't overshadowed by someone else's needs. After dinner, I washed the dishes, stacked them neatly, and sat with a journal in my lap. On the first page, I wrote 3 sentences. I am not just a mother. I am not just a wallet. I am free. At midnight, the phone buzzed once more. A final message from Emily. "You've ruined everything. Don't ever expect to hear from me again. I read it twice, then turned off the phone. As I slipped into bed, moonlight spilling across the room, a surprising thought took hold. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had ruined something. But it wasn't my life. It was the illusion that I owed anyone more than I had already given. And with that realization, I slept more peacefully than I had in years.